what a day for Marvel Spider-Man 2. The news continues to unfold, and boy oh boy, not only did we get our pre-orders today, where things were a little bit dicey if you were one of the people that had to use PlayStation Direct, but it seems like a lot of you guys were successful in actually getting the edition that you wanted, which I'm super duper happy about. I'm glad that people in this community managed to at least get the version of the game that they wanted. I think the funniest reaction I've seen is from people that got the digital edition, because they were like, bro, all I had to do was just log on to the PlayStation Store and that's it. So massive W to you guys. And of course, for those of you that struggled getting the collector's edition, I am so sorry that that was a bummer for you guys, but hopefully you still managed to get the version that you wanted. However, it is time to pivot away from that, because there have been some very cool developments when it comes to pre-order day, because Bryan Intihar has gone ahead and done another interview, and this time with Marvel.com. Now, if you don't know who Bryan Intihar is, he is the creative director at Insomniac Games. Obviously, at this point in time, if you've been following the game, you know that he's a pretty significant voice when it comes to how this game is going to release, the story ideas that they had, and obviously, just in general, a lot of the public relations and interviews have been completed by Bryan himself. And of course, some of the other interviews that he's done over the course of the last 2 weeks or so have been absolutely full of exciting development. Now, did we get any new information as part of this interview? Well, yes, excitingly so, he actually dropped some new nuggets for us to discuss, including some pretty big implications for all the suits in the game. But before we get to that, let's talk about the revelations around Kraven, because I found these to be exciting as well. First and foremost, Bryan is incredibly well trained in the media department, because he pretty much spent most of the interview repeating a lot of the points that we already know that I've been covering here on the channel, whether it be the ability to transform quickly from Miles to Pete, the size of the city, kind of the inspiration behind Venom, a lot of the things that we've already learned. But he did talk about Kraven in more details, and interestingly enough, he was asked to give a little bit more context around Sergei Kraven, which also kind of is odd, because usually Sergei goes by Sergei Kravenov and it's just Kraven for short. But here, I guess they address him as Sergei Kraven in this world. Regardless though, when asked about his place in the game, Bryan went ahead and dropped some very interesting revelations, saying that he wasn't originally in the game. In the early conception of the title, when they were talking about whether or not he would be in the game, they were kind of thinking of a story that they wanted to tell, and they decided that Kraven would be the perfect character to push both Peter and Miles to the places that they needed them to go in terms of being uncomfortable. He also, as part of this, revealed that the only two characters that they guaranteed knew were going to be in this game when it comes to villains are actually the Lizard and Venom. I think this is pretty important, because I feel like this pretty much confirms the fact that Venom is most definitely not going to be Kraven, which means that I was incorrect about my assumption, and it means that those of you that were in the comments section telling me that Blitz, it's probably going to be Occam's razor, where it's most likely going to be Harry, are most likely correct, but I still believe that there's a good chance that Norman is the one that becomes Venom, just because of the fact that, again, I don't really understand how the symbiote is going to work with Harry, considering that Harry is unbelievably ill. And most of the time in the comics, anytime a character that was bonded with the symbiote of any kind, when they get ill, the symbiote just pretty much says goodbye, because it feels like the host is no longer valid. So that was obviously a really cool revelation about Kraven himself and the role that he's going to play. He also did seem to continuously refer to the idea that Kraven is a character that is not based in magic or tech, and is just purely going to be a physical challenge, a mental and physical challenge for both Pete and Miles. But then we got this crazy confirmation. This is something that we kind of thought that was going to be true based on the pre-order bonus for the game, but Bryan full outright actually confirms it here. He was asked the question about essentially like, hey, how do you guys decide what do you show when you show it? And how do you make sure that some things you just keep a secret until people are actually playing the game? To which Bryan replied with, first and foremost, saying that they saw a lot of great success with doing the early unlock suits with Marvel Spider-Man 1 and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, so they knew that they definitely wanted to do that with this time as well. So obviously that makes sense that the campaign was successful for them before. Obviously rinse and repeat, and don't fix something that ain't broken. But the more interesting development comes along in the second paragraph, where he refers to something called web links, which are, of course, it seems like at least, the new color variants. So when we saw those pre-orders, you probably noticed that they all come with a color variant. In fact, each one of the suits had a default look and then 3 color variants for each suit. And he went ahead and said the following: for the majority of our suits, we have these color variants now, which is new to the customization. So you actually get to unlock a suit, but then you also get the variants that we offer. So it's definitely going to make sure that we do things like photo mode in a much more comprehensive way, which is super duper exciting. So that means that the vast majority of the costumes that will be included in this game will not just have one color variant, but will have a bunch of color variants. It seems like at least 3 seems to be kind of a safe bet. It's also interesting because in the same paragraph, it seems like he implies that the webbing will have different colors also, which I guess makes sense because even if we look at the trailer so far, when Peter has the symbiote suit, his webbing actually is black, like the symbiote webbing would be. It seems like there's a possibility that the actual webbing itself will have customization or recolors depending on whatever suit you're wearing. So obviously that's a pretty major revelation. I think this is going to be kind of a divisive thing in the community because I think some people will feel like it's just too much and that it cheapens the experience, making it feel like a bit more of like a mobile experience. Plus, I think some people immediately get worried because they think, hey, are they going to try to sell us some of these color variants down the line as some sort of microtransactions? I think as of right now, there's nothing to be worried about because the Insomniac team has been very, very good about not nickel and diming you for every single little thing. So I would be absolutely shocked if they start selling us color variants at some point in the future in a way where it feels like predatory pricing. There you go, guys. That's the Marvel article news from Bryan Intihar from Marvel.com themselves. Of course, if you want to read the full article, I'll have that down in the comments section below, so you can check that out if you'd like to as well. Of course, in addition to all of that, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, hit the thumbs up button. If you want to hear me break down all the shenanigans around the pre-order today for Marvel Spider-Man 2, check out the video you're seeing on your screen right now, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, everybody.